You're on in 5. 1, 2. Check a 1, 2.
Hello and welcome back to On in 5. Thanks for joining us for Jimi Hendrix Part 4. I'm Austin Thomas, as always. I got Ethan Bonine, Anton Ryder here.
Hola.
What's up, guys? What's up, guys?
Good day. I'm having a lot of fun. How are you, Tony?
I'm good.
Oh my God.
I am. I'm drinking a Samuel Adams Oktoberfest, even though it is September 29th.
Wow.
Daddy's being a little bit of a bad boy today.
Ooh.
It's never too early, I say.
You know, I've been a rebel through and through, hardy and smooth, just like me.
That's what I've always said about you. If there's two things I could describe you as.
I'm a little smooth, but a lot hardy.
Very hardy.
You know who else was
Hold the Y.
unbelievably hardy and smooth?
Incredible segue already.
Mr. James Hendrix, of course. Of course. Let's get into it. At the end of our last episode, we found a 24-year-old Jimi Hendrix counting down to the new year with new friends and fellow musicians at the Hillside Social Club in Folkestone, right on the English Channel in the UK. His new home for the last 99 days.
Tony, wait, that's just a hair over 3 months. No, that can't be right, can it?
Believe it or not, that's exactly right.
Incredible.
Arrived in the UK on September 24th. Here he is on December 31st. 99 days. He kept it under 3 digits until
That is wild.
January 1st, of course, where he hit the 3 digits.
Yeah.
He had blown the country away with his incredible talent, impressing even the most established guitarist in the country.
Legendary talents, like people who will arguably go on to live for too long.
That is a hot take.
Yeah, I feel like there's specifics in mind, but
Yeah. We won't get into that.
some of them just won't die.
We're going to leave that one at the door. So while he had his single out, giving the average music listener their first taste of his already unique style, he still had a lot to do, mainly show his original home what he was all about.
Oh, they're about to rue the day, buddy.
They're going to get theirs, but not in this episode, of course. Starting out in Britain was perfect for him, because the country was so small that he was able to get on shows, both on the television and on the radio, that played across the entire country with little to no trouble, furthering his exposure that much quicker. At the beginning of 1967, Hey Joe was continuing to climb the charts, where it would peak at number 6.
I really do want to do a one-off episode sometime soon about the pirate radio craze that was happening during this time, because it has such a big effect on his success in the UK.
Oh, buddy, I think that's going to be like a pretty necessary thing to do.
Definitely. Got to do soon.
I think I remember a movie about this. Maybe early 2000s.
Are you talking
You
about...
might be remembering the movie Pirate Radio.
Yeah.
Are you talking about... You're thinking of Radio Rebel on the Disney Channel.
Yes, that was the one.
Who's that? Who's in that?
Debbie Reynolds. You remember the famous where she's a radio personality in Seattle, and she doesn't tell anyone who she is? You guys ringing a bell?
You're the only one that knows anything of what you're talking about.
Radio Rebel. Radio Rebel. Oh, what a bad movie that is. Don't watch it.
Wow. All right.
It's not a good movie.
Now you made me want to watch it.
Well, then my plan worked perfectly. I don't know if that's
Awesome.
what you're actually thinking of, but that is a real movie.
Huh.
Yeah.
No, I think he's thinking of Pirate Radio.
Pirate Radio, I think.
Oh, you're thinking of Airheads.
Yo, yeah.
Yeah, they break into the radio, and then they take over the radio station.
You're
I
familiar,
remember
of
it.
course.
Is there not one called Pirate Radio?
I think there is. I didn't
man.
look into it too deep.
That's what we do need to know, or we're just gonna sound like assholes.
I was just hoping one person remembered, but apparently I was wrong to think that.
No, Airheads definitely is that concept. So
Pirate Radio, I feel like is a movie, but I don't know if it's based on the true events or not.
I don't know either, but it is a movie. Okay, that's all we need.
That's all we need.
We're good.
Okay, good.
We're good.
It is a real movie. Yeah, I actually am pretty bummed because we didn't I said I was very excited to talk about pirate radio, and then I just didn't because it just didn't fit naturally in the episode. But yeah, we'll do a one-off episode probably after the series is over. We'll just like put in a fun little side episode on it because it is an incredibly fascinating thing that happened in the UK.
Yeah.
And really did help.
We honestly, like, we could do an episode after this where we just like talk about little things like that added to his success, because there's so many we can't even talk about.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, bundle them up.
Could be super good, which we might do. Who knows? We'll have to see. We'll have to see if we're totally burnt out by Jimmy when we finish this 30-part series this is turning out to be.
I'm glad the audience got to sit in on that brainstorm session.
Of course. Well, that's
well, we figure it out.
That's what this is all about. We're a democracy here. All right.
That's true. That's true.
So after the new year started, he took a couple of days off at the beginning of January, and then it was back to playing at clubs across Britain and beyond, as well as doing plenty of interviews where magazines, television shows, and any other forms of media were desperate to get to know this young phenomenon just a little better. But of course, all anyone really cared about was seeing the Jimi Hendrix Experience play. They played a show at the Marquee Club in London and broke the club's record for the most people in line waiting to get in, with it apparently stretching about a third of a mile outside the club.
Kicking ass and taking names the whole way.
A whole way.
You typed it in backwards, but then you said it correct.
Kicking names and taking ass.
Good for you, buddy.
Well, you know, my brain did what it was supposed to.
You
I didn't.
You out dyslexicked your own dyslexic brain.
I
Good
just
for you.
Dyslexic myself.
And also, at this time, all of Cream was there to watch them as well, and were so inspired by the performance that they shortly after wrote the song Sunshine of Your Love and dedicated it to Jimmy, mainly the main lick that Jack Bruce came up with.
Wild Thing had a really cool firsthand account of this show from Chris Squire, and if you're unfamiliar, Chris went on to become the bassist of Yes, but he was 18 at this point, and it was his first band was booked to open the show. And they were booked to open for Cliff Bennett and the Rebel Rousers. But when they got there, he walked in and he like saw Jimmy trying to teach Noel a part, and Noel like wasn't getting it, I guess.
Yeah.
And he'd still heard nothing about the Jimi Hendrix Experience at all at this point. So he asked the club manager what was going on, and he was like, I have no idea. I just got told these guys are headlining. I don't have a clue who they are. But then the line outside started like building and building way bigger than what the Rebel Rousers were reported to like be pulling in.
Yeah.
And so Chris was like, this makes no sense. Like, these guys couldn't even get this 5-note bass part worked out. And then the show started and his band got on stage and he looked down and like in the front row was Keith Richards, Pete Townsend, Steve Winwood, you know, all of Cream, like Tony said. And it's just like, this was all happening so fast that these musicians who were tangentially involved with the story couldn't even understand what was happening.
Snowballing.
It's insane. Oh my God, it's so insane.
It's incredible.
And of course, Chris Squire, yes, plays the incredible bass lick on Roundabout.
Roundabout.
Same guy.
It's amazing.
The one.
Oh. Anyway,
Just all these little stories, these
just
little
love that
sprinklings.
Just love that song. And not only were the other bands being inspired to write arguably their most popular songs from Jimi Hendrix, labels were being inspired by them as well. After the success of Hey Joe was very clear, Polydor gave the green light for track records for The Who's managers Chris Stamp and Kit Lambert. The label was officially created on January 11th, and on the same day, Chaz and Mike also signed a contract with Chris and Kit's production company, New Action. Because if you remember, Chris and Kit were actually movie producers first, and these bands that they discovered were basically just a side gig for them.
It's a nice passion project to have on the side to work on when you want.
Just like a little hobby.
Yeah,
pet hobby. not really something you make money from. Just
Not too invested.
because you care.
Discovering the Who and making sure that Jimi Hendrix gets seen by the world.
Good.
Just little hobbies.
And the funny part is that New Action Media is like not, you can't find really anything on it.
It's just not even really a thing.
Wonderful. Yeah, New Action gave Chaz, Mike, and maybe some of the band £1,000 for an advance, which is
1,000 pounds of what?
Come on,
Tell me about it. Oh, good to be in the Zoom.
pounds of what?
Which in today's money is about $25,000. So not a bad little advance, chump change advance for them. And they also promised a music video, or actually a promo film, as they were called in those days. They were actually a pretty new idea at the time, and they were something that the Beatles came up with. So it was very recent. They would come up with a promo film for every single that the band came out with.
And God bless them for giving us the music video.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I actually didn't know that was what really started with them.
Yeah,
neither.
because they were getting too busy. It's kind of a fun story. They were getting too busy playing all the shows everywhere. They couldn't play everywhere. And so they were like, why don't we just fucking film a video and then just send the video to people?
Genius.
That's what they did.
Genius.
Why don't we do that?
Wouldn't that be easier? And then,
That would be so easy.
yeah, I think it saved them from having to do like a bunch of media appearances and stuff. They could just be like, just play our video. It's fine.
Yeah. God, smart.
Amazing. Dude, when we do the Beatles, it's going to be, I think we're going to do the Beatles for a year. I think it's going to be the
Yeah,
year
we're
of the
gonna have
Beatles.
to mark a year off. Yeah.
God.
It's amazing.
There's no other way.
But in exchange, the Jimi Hendrix Experience would need to release 2 albums and 4 singles for every year that they were signed to the contract.
Okay, 2 albums and 4 singles in 1 year is insane already.
Yeah.
Every year you're signed to the label, that's absurd. But the most fun part about this whole thing is that the contract did not include a recording budget, so the band would have to pay for the recording on their own, in theory. And Chaz actually ended up paying for a lot of it himself, but any good manager knows that's just leverage for later.
Got him.
Yep. Usually the people who end up getting fucked in the end is pretty much always the band. Yeah. Anyone else, amazingly, the people who have to do the most work.
And that's how it should be.
Welcome to showbiz, baby. And so Jimmy, Noel, and Mitch never signed this contract, as it was all handled by Chaz and Mike. And since they were their managers, thanks to their own contract, this was all completely legal.
Legal is real loose here. I'm just going to throw a little fact out quick. At this moment in time, none of these contracts were legally valid.
Whoa, that's a hot take.
Well, we'll get to it.
Oh,
Someone
okay.
might
I
already
understand.
be on
Yeah,
top.
There's a little precedent here. Okay, all right. You little.
Don't worry, they'll make sure that goes under the rug anyway.
Yeah, they're the kings of shade. And the shadiest part of the whole deal was that the contract actually promised nothing through track or new action directly, relying only on whatever the contract they signed with Chaz and Mike to get paid for any album royalties.
I'm sure that, like economics and society, that the wealth will trickle down in the music industry. You just have to wait. And
Yeah.
do you taste that? I think it's piss. I think actually all they get is piss.
Look at that. It did trickle down.
Yep.
Amazing.
That's all you get.
No, it's raining. Piss in my mouth and tell me it's
weird.
raining.
Stick out your tongue, baby. Catch as much as you can. It's about to dry up.
Yep.
And so shortly after it was signed, Mike went straight to Polydor and got another contract that said after the Track Records deal was complete and voided, all of the Jimi Hendrix Experience's work would actually come back and be owned by Chaz and Mike and not Polydor. I don't know how he pulled this off, but I'm not surprised by it.
No, not one bit. And you probably won't be surprised to hear he figures out a way to get Chaz out of that equation eventually.
Dude, I don't know, but I have such a I'm emotionally torn with Mike Jeffrey because on
you're
the one-
fascinated
dude,
by
you know, it's like this. It's the scene in Anchorman. I think it's Anchor. Yeah, it's the first Anchorman when Vince Vaughn is like holding Ron Burgundy on the ladder, and he's like, "I hate you with every fiber of my being." But God damn it, do I respect you? That's me. That's me to Mike Jeffrey. I don't know. He was the scuzziest guy, but he just did whatever he wanted, and everyone was like, "Okay, sounds good. Yeah, sure. You can have all of the. You can have everything. That's great." He was a wheeler and dealer through and through, man.
I mean, I totally understand what you're getting at, but I need to say on audio record, I do not respect Mike Jeffrey. I just need to make that clear.
That's fair. That's fair. But the same day that all of this was done, By chance, the band went back into Delaney Studios to start recording their next single, a new song that Jimmy was trying out called Purple Haze. This is the one where he's like, "Oh, I can have fun in the studio. I didn't know that."
Yeah.
This is the one where he takes the turn. So the band had gone back into the studio at the end of December to mess around, and while he was jamming, Chaz heard Jimmy play a riff that made him stop and listen. He was kind of doing his own thing, helping produce, helping engineer stuff, and he was like, "Jimmy, play that again." So he played it, and what he heard was the incredible riff that we all mimicked perfectly. And he said that if he continued to work on it, that would be his next single.
Yeah, he said he heard it and he was like, "That's your next single." And then they had to play a show the same night, and Jimmy just locked himself in the dressing room and basically fleshed out the general specifics of it that night.
So nuts. It's like the same thing with Sweet Child of Mine. Slash just dinking around on the guitar, and they're like, oh, I didn't know you had this incredibly catchy riff
why
in
haven't
your
you
back
been
pocket.
putting every ounce of creativity into this?
How about it? Thank God for producers for just catching shit on the fly.
Sometimes they know.
Yep. So they went into the studio and they recorded a basic version of the song in just about 4 hours, and then everyone went home, and over the next couple weeks, just Chaz and Jimmy would come back into the studio and work on it, adding overdubs and effects and parts to make it more complex. And all of this was done basically without Noel's or Mitch's knowledge, because Chaz thought it would be easier to do it alone with just Jimmy instead. And to record the overdubbing parts, they actually went into Olympic Studios in London rather than Delaney Studios.
And Olympic was like top of the line at this point because it's where the Stones did all of their albums.
Yeah. And while they were there, they met producer and engineer Eddie Kramer, who was, even at the time, a pretty popular producer and engineer, but over his career has worked with names like Led Zeppelin, John Mayall, Carly Simon, Kiss, Eric Clapton, Santana, David Bowie, the Rolling Stones, John Mellencamp, and many, many, many more. And just as a fun little side note, like Mutt Lange, he was also born in South Africa.
I believe we briefly mentioned it in our Mutt episode, so get off our asses unless I'm wrong.
I don't know.
I don't remember.
I think so.
I'll
cover both bases.
Maybe.
Just in case.
Good for you.
Also, don't get this guy confused with the guy who co-founded Dragon Con.
I didn't.
They share a name, and that person is charged with child sex offenses. 2 years ago. Yeah,
that's a different Eddie Kramer.
Different Eddie Kramer.
God damn.
Yeah.
How did I not realize before?
My whole
turns
world is
out.
blown, man.
Now you know.
What am I
Not
going to
the
do
same.
now? Well, cancel the rest of the episode because I was basing the whole thing around the sex offender jokes.
Yeah, we took a big turn after that in the outline.
All your lines.
Well, I'll just improvise it. It's fine. I'll figure it out. So Eddie would become
Just good, clean fun.
so Eddie would become pretty instrumental in Jimmy's recording career. But here in the studio, they decided to get more complex with the way they recorded. So they tried out new things, like playing around with some background parts through headphones, which they moved around the studio during the recording to give a bizarre, echoey sound on the tape as they moved nearer and further from the mics. And they also sped up some guitar parts that Jimmy played at half speed to give it a unique sound.
Kramer said that him and Jimmy were like competitive in the studio in the best way possible. Jimmy would do something to get a weird sound out of his guitar, and then Eddie would run to the console and mess with the effects and compression and make it cooler, and then Jimmy would be like, "Oh, that sounds awesome. What can I do to top that?" And well, you can see what happened.
Everywhere you look, everyone says that Eddie Kramer was kind of the guy who could put Jimmy's musical thoughts onto tape.
That's so
he's the one that could so he could get into Jimmy's head and figure out exactly what he wanted.
So important.
Big player in this.
God.
And it was during these sessions that Jimmy used the Octavia guitar pedal for the first time, which essentially doubles the frequency of the sound that is being input. And in this case, it was Jimmy's guitar during the guitar solo to add a second higher octave to the part, which is just a neat little effect, and we'll find out more about its creator and why it's so important in a moment.
Yeah, and it could also just raise or lower the pitch a full octave, but you went all the way in.
Yeah.
You really gave us the breakdown.
Well, of course. Yeah, that's what I'm
That's
going
what
to do.
you're here for.
That's what I'm here for.
I love it.
So this Octavia Pedal, as well as many more, were created by Roger Mayer with the help and input of Jimi. And Roger will become another big player in Jimi's life, as he created a lot of the effects that Jimi, as well as many other musicians, would use and make commonplace in the world of guitar and music in general.
I mean, the world of guitar solos, as we know it now, wouldn't be the same without the doubler effect that an Octavia pedal does.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And another pedal that Roger Mayer created was the Fuzz Pedal, which essentially like gives us distortion.
So important.
So
It really changed the entire.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Roger actually saw Jimi play in London and talked to him after the show and told him that he was an acoustic engineer with the British Royal Navy Scientific Service and had built fuzz boxes for guitars like Jimmy Page, Keith Richards, and Jeff Beck, and he would love to work with Jimi as well.
His job was studying sound waves underwater to enhance the systems used on submarines, but he was also just a radical fucking dude, and he turned
Fuck yeah, dude.
turned that into something that changed the world of electric guitar, and this was his pièce de résistance, and Jimi was the first person he ever showed it to. Like, he was already building effects for the biggest names, and the second he saw Jimi live, he's like, knew that was the guy.
Around this time, Roger was also 21.
Yeah, that's nuts. That is nuts.
21 when he met Jimi.
Eddie Kramer was also 21 at this time, so.
Wow.
I don't know if you said that, Tony, but.
I did
No.
not.
Everyone talks about how Jimi is like this like prodigy. Jimi's 24. He's old by these people's
Surrounded
standard.
by prodigies.
He's a hack now.
It's unbelievable. You know what's funny? I don't know how this happens because the guy who created autotune is like a seismograph studier. Like he's like
I did not know that.
a scientist too, like an engineer. He's like
that's
one day
awesome.
he's like, I'm gonna create autotune, and he did. It's amazing.
And he.
Anodyne.
Yep.
This is the episode of fun side hustles that are industry changing. How about that?
Walked it all the way to the bank.
Good for him.
So from these effects and from Roger came a plethora of groundbreaking new sounds for Jimi and by association, the entire world to use. And as far as I can tell, the single's B-side, 51st Anniversary, was done during their time at Delane Lee Studios on January 11th as well, or maybe even earlier in December, with it being finished in about a day. It's not a bad song by any means. It's just not a lot to talk about except for as the fourth single that was released to the world. It's pretty straightforward, but the one thing that it does do is that it gives a glimpse of Jimi's thoughts on marriage and lifelong love, mainly that it does not exist. The song, if you're not familiar, the first half of it, it's a couple's 50th anniversary, or they're in their 50th anniversary, and they're celebrating their 51st anniversary soon, and how they're full of love. And then halfway through, he says, now for the bad part. And then he like talks about how shitty marriage is and stuff. And so if you'd believe it, he got a lot of the influence for this song from his own parents' relationship when he was a kid.
I do. And
if you'd believe it.
Yeah, I do. And it's not a sad song at all, but it's also a very sad song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an emotionally complex song, and good for Jimi for writing it.
Sure.
And these in-depth breakdowns of songs are a blast to do because in my eyes, they add a lot more context to the music and make songs that you might not be as interested in much more interesting to listen to, as you can pick apart the little effects and tricks and meanings and motifs and stuff in them. And we're going to continue to do most of the song breakdowns on our listening party episodes.
Yes.
The first of which is out now.
Yeah. There are like so many little tidbits and facts about these songs that add so much depth to them. And then there's like also just the fun facts, like how Purple Haze isn't actually about the thing everyone decided it was about.
You tell me it's not about cannabis.
I mean, that's not what people decided it was about, but it's not about that either.
Oh, I always thought it was about weed.
Nah, buddy.
No.
Lysergic.
What does everyone think?
Lysergic acid.
That being said, there's 500 trillion fucking weed strains out there now that are called Purple Haze.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah.
they
That's
really
why I always
capitalized on it.
Yep.
That's for sure.
It worked. I mean, it did seem destined to be now, but maybe that's
Yeah.
just hindsight.
Yeah.
With chicken or
Emphasis
the
on the
egg.
high, am I right?
Hey, yeah, dude. Fucking A right you are, brother.
Oh, fucking bro, dude.
I can't make a bubble noise.
Weed should be more illegal, if you ask me.
Good lord.
So,
That's not funny.
expect to hear a more in-depth breakdown on these listener party episodes. And if you're listening on Spotify, you can hear the songs themselves in the episodes, which is very neat. I found out recently, and this actually I'm telling Ethan and Austin right now, when music is added to episodes, it's actually only on Spotify. So you can't listen to it anywhere else, even without the music. So it's a very Spotify exclusive. So
We didn't know that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
How about that?
But hey,
So-
a free Spotify account gets you the 30-second quick cut. So maybe
Yeah, just listen to a little bit of it.
look into that. Yeah.
real worth it.
Yep.
Again, don't go to Spotify just to listen to us if you don't want to. Do whatever you got to do. Of course, between all these recording sessions, they were playing basically every night as well, with them actually playing on nights they recorded as well. So they would record all day, and then they would leave the studio, and they would head straight to a venue to play a full show.
That sounds so grueling. Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tired.
Not great. Yeah, I don't. They it's long days for him. I don't know how they did it.
Workhorses.
And then Jimmy would oftentimes take home girls, or he would go home to Kathy Etchingham and do what they did all night. And I don't know. I think
Talk
sleep
about
was
their
pretty.
feelings.
Yeah, of course. I think sleep was pretty low on their list of things to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're either fighting or fucking.
Either way, I'm hard. But this over the last two episodes,
I don't know why that would be.
I just seem like I'm sexually attracted to anger. I'm not.
Yeah,
I don't
you
like
have
that.
been
I'm not-
really
I love
riding
it.
the anger there.
I don't like that. But all of this playing and being this crazy was not unusual for these new bands who were, for one, really excited to get themselves out there. There was a momentum behind them because they were actually doing stuff. So that was super fun for the bands. And we've seen this with plenty of bands that we've covered where it's pretty much like studio tour, studio tour, studio tour. And it's usually not till after their third or fourth album that they finally get to take a little bit of a break.
Yeah. Studio, club, storage unit, the whole routine.
Gotta bring it back. GNR again. I love it.
Yeah. Way back.
But what did
Do what you got to do.
But what did make the Jimi Hendrix experience so unusual is that they didn't have studio time laid out for them like the other bands we've covered. They would often go into the studio for just a couple hours to lay down a part that they had been writing or been working on, and then leave and play a show the same day. It wasn't like they had a week straight of studio time. As Austin said, they had to pay for the studio time on their own, which meant that Chaz was paying for it, or the band was paying for it, or Mike was not paying for it. So no one wanted to waste time in the studio, because in this case, time literally was money.
And let's remember, he's only getting a 20% cut off the top here. All right. This is like frugal times.
Yeah, it's sell your guitar times is what we're dealing with. It's nuts. Most bands
Only a skim 20%.
I did like that, and that's still really backhanded. It's too much.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Most bands are a band for quite a while before they get into the studio, where they are on the same page about their music, and they already have a decent back catalog from playing for years together where they can pull from for their first couple albums. But this wasn't the case with the Jimi Hendrix experience. By the time their second single was completed in early February, they'd only been a band for about 4 months total. And while they did play a lot of shows already, it was a lot of covers and the same few originals that they would play.
I think I'm going to just start pointing out really obvious things that are like completely beyond all belief to me, starting with the idea of a brand new band that's going to have 2 singles charting before they even have a full set worth of original material.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? It's unbelievable.
It is.
It's incredible. I don't know how they do it.
Different times.
Yeah. But
Different
the reason
people.
it really helps when one of the people is Jimi Hendrix. That helps a lot.
Some form of deity.
But the reason they did work so well together was because they were pretty much thrown to the wolves during the first half of 1967. They would play for weeks at a time with only 1 or 2 days off, and a lot of those days would be filled with photo shoots and or interviews. Now, granted, a lot of Jimmy's days before gigs were fairly open to do what he wanted, which included shopping, hanging out with Kathleen, or any other woman who may catch his fancy, and practicing and writing on his own. And so this was the Experience's life for the next few months. It was days of playing at the 7.5 Club, the Seville Theater, the Ram Jam Club, and so many more all over the UK. And of course, they now had to make the promotional films as well. The first of which was for Hey Joe, recorded on January 29th and the 31st at the Seville Theater in London, with a film crew getting both the band's rehearsal and then part of their gig on the 29th, and then getting more on the 31st with the band faking their playing and singing.
I was actually able to find this in like a video archive. It's pretty cool. It's them performing, but they're like scenes of two guys in cowboy gear facing off for a duel with the old lady watching.
Oh.
I think it's worth looking up.
Yeah.
Sidebar though, I don't know if we've mentioned this before, but the Seville Theater was essentially the Beatles' private theater because it was owned by Brian Epstein, and this is the venue where Jimmy is going to do one of the coolest and most insane things I've ever heard of a musician doing. You just wait.
You just wait till the end of this episode to find out what it is.
Might be my favorite fact we've learned in this whole thing.
It's unbelievable. It's so cool. So through the month of February, it was in and out of the Delane Lee studios to record more music, like when they went in on the 8th to not only work on Purple Haze, but also more new songs he was creating, mainly Fire and Foxy Lady. And on the 20th, recording the song I Don't Live Today. They would go in and lay down the basic track and then spend the next few weeks tweaking and experimenting with them.
Got to demo it, polish it, refine it later.
So it goes.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because that is what a lot of bands do when they produce an album in studio, but they were just doing it on the fly. I mean, they were doing it like in live shows. They'd be like, oh, I created this, or Jimmy would come up with something, or they'd
Just try playing it.
Yeah, exactly. And
Live.
so that's how they would come up with it. Wasn't just sitting in a studio for 10 hours a day until 3 a.m. It was like, oh yeah, I came up with this during last night's gig, or what I want to try this new effect or something like that. So it was a very improv type of recording that they would do, and then right at the end they'd be like, okay, let's go put it on tape. And that's what they're doing
as quick as we can.
And while they only recorded for 4 days total in February, that doesn't mean they took it easy by any means. They also played 22 shows and did 2 media appearances. In total, the band only had 4 days off.
There's only 28 days in the month of February.
Yeah.
28 huge events happening, and somehow you pull off 4 days.
Yeah, unbelievable. And the math does seem a little off there, and it's because they would often do more than one thing in a single day.
One day, Ethan will read ahead.
I love it.
I'm not doing that. Nope. I did read ahead, but I was like, no, I'm not changing it.
Yeah,
No,
you
I've been
already
there.
typed it. Yeah,
I'm just breaking your balls because I've illicitly been there.
I've heard Ethan's delete key is completely broken. He's a one-take wonder.
I don't have one. I removed the backspace and the delete.
I have
with intent.
I have copy and pasted segments rather than delete it. Double down on it.
Good for you, buddy.
I do remember that last time.
So, oftentimes it was media appearances during the day and then a show at night, or record during the day, then a show at night. They did not slow down one bit, and right now, Jimmy loved it. He loved playing and recording. And so this fast-paced world that was essentially revolving around him was exactly what he wanted. And of course, the month of March was no different. In February, the band traveled a lot, but they never actually left England, with the furthest north they traveled towards Scotland being a ironically named town, South Shields. But in March, they would once again get off the islands for various events. First, they had some solo booking engagements that they had to venture further outside of England.
So I don't know if this is further north than South Shields.
Okay.
But they played, that was hard to say. They played a show in Ilkley Moor, located in West Yorkshire. And it's kind of a notable area because it's a big stretch of lowlands, and it's really known for its huge populations of ground nesting birds. So good one to put on your retirement bucket list.
Good to know. Yeah, I'm having a big year.
Yeah, you're going to want to take a trip there for get your book out. But
Like killdeer?
Like killdeer?
Yeah, are they like ground nesting killdeer? You know, the ones in the road?
I know grouse. I knew that there's a lot of grouse, but I don't know what
I'm
else.
not sure about killdeer.
Uh,
The fuck
That's
are you
fine.
guys talking about?
For the ground nesting birds.
Ground nesting birds, Tony.
You gotta get with the program, pal.
Come on.
But anyway, I digress. So they played like a little hotel, and it was basically the entrance to the moors. I don't know exactly how. I think it was like only one road that led in there.
Nice. That's sick.
Well, so many people came that it like completely blocked the traffic from all the cars in the road. So the police sergeant was sent to check it out, and I guess there was 600 people, and it was a 200 cap room. And so he showed up in the middle of their set, and he like got Jimmy to ask people to leave. He like interrupted the set, got him to announce it, and he said, like, get them to leave or I'm going to shut it down. And people got real mad and started getting rowdy. So he went backstage and started just pulling wires. And all he did was unplug the lights and made it decidedly more badass.
I just imagine this fat English police officer like going back, and he's like, I'm gonna shut this down, and then he like goes back and he starts pulling lights, and it's like, I've got him now, and then it's like shoots back to the stage, and it's just like a strobe show going on. It's like infinitely sweeter.
There's like somehow movers going.
Yeah, like the
CO2
lights are
now.
like panning and shit. It's like fucking sweet as shit.
Drop starts falling.
These goddamn kids. Shut this down post haste.
Oh man, that's comedy gold. That's a sketch.
Yeah, rough outline.
Audience, you can have that. If somebody wants to make that, just send it to me when you're done, because that sounds super fun.
Yes.
We'll all watch.
So I also don't know if the town you said Stinky Moor or whatever it's called is more north or south Shields. I don't know.
They're gonna be mad. The people in Ilkley Moor.
The UK has the most incredible names.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Jonah Grotz.
So after a couple shows and one more day of recording at the studio, where they recorded Like a Rolling Stone, they headed off to France to play 3 shows over the course of 2 days on March 4th and 5th. And on the 5th, they played a show in France and then drove 45 minutes into Belgium and played a show there on the same day.
I bet his recording time with Curtis Knight really helped him play his cover of Like a Rolling Stone. Probably
Yeah,
second
man.
nature at that point.
Oh,
Yeah, I got about 80% of the way there.
Yeah, he knew it well, one way or another.
I think you're exactly right. So they hung out in Belgium for the next 2 days to play on a couple of television shows there, though they had to mime, which Jimmy hated.
Why is television production so picky about bands playing with a backing track instead of actually playing?
Because it's more controlled. You can't go off script, and and everything is like, nobody can have a detrimental mistake that ruins
Yeah.
the take or something.
Yeah.
Even if they stop playing, the tape will still be there, and then they can
makes
do
sense.
something. They can cut to the audience shot or something like that, and it still looks like the band's playing. So.
Yeah. Less things to affect the bottom line.
Exactly, yeah. But, when you do the backing track, sometimes you do get the accident, like the Ashley Simpson on the Saturday Night Live incident. So
On a Monday,
double sword.
I'm waiting on a Monday.
Isn't that a fun little clip?
I don't think I've seen it, if I'm being honest, and now I'm mad.
It's
funny.
great.
No,
It's
it really
Starts
wonderful.
dancing.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that's like early 2000s.
That's
a long time ago.
upsetting.
It's great.
Is that what tanked her career?
Yes.
Oh well,
Yes.
it's not the,
one of
not the nail
several.
in the coffin, but one of the nails.
Contributing. All right, fair.
The reason that Jimmy hated miming so much was because they felt that they were a live band first, with their live performance being the ideal way to see them. And so to force them to mime hindered a lot of their creative control and the ability to improvise and get into the music they were playing, which, again, is great for a performer, but is not great for a television studio.
Yep.
because you want things to be controlled. And after these 2 television appearances on the shows Vibrato and Tienerklanken, which translates to teen sounds in English, they headed back to London for a couple days to play more shows around the area before being sent off again to Amsterdam to appear on the television show Fan Club.
I'm sure it was more like sounds of teens, but you know how translations go.
Yep. Tienerklanken.
Yeah.
Welcome to our show, Tienerklanken.
Wow. I feel like I'm on it.
Yeah. Yep. Welcome.
Thank you.
Listen to Jimmy not play. What country was it in? Belgium? I don't know. That's how the. I don't know.
I don't know, man.
You sound a little more Scandinavian than Belgium.
God.
I don't know.
Wow.
They're all kind of close.
Yeah, they're all in the mountains.
That's where Daddy's from. It's from Bruges.
So they were supposed to play on Fan Club Live, and Jimmy was going to play Purple Haze because all of this was kind of a promotional outing for Purple Haze because it was going to come out soon. But after an argument where the show asked Jimmy to turn it down a little bit and he refused, they said that he was going to have to mime and he was going to have to play to a recording of Hey Joe and Stone Free, which Jimmy begrudgingly did and then protested by moving as little as possible.
Why are they so picky about this?
This one actually has a little bit of credo because, like, I didn't mention this. I figured you would mention this. During
No, I
a
didn't.
rehearsal for it, the music was so loud that it made everyone have to leave the studio. And it was knocking plaster off the hotel next door. So
That's amazing.
it was pretty loud.
Yeah, I actually think I
kinda
shared
cool, though.
the story of this. Well, maybe that was actually when we were talking about. I brought something up in a show. It might have been different. I don't know.
I mean, he was loud all the time. He liked to be
Same
loud.
thing. Yeah, it happens multiple times.
Yeah. So again, but at the heart of it, it all goes back to control. They just want to be able to control everything, which does make it tough for a tour where you're trying to promote a song that's
They're bastards.
That's how it goes.
A bunch of
Welcome to
bastards.
fucking television.
Yep.
And then after the show, it was back to London once again so the band could release their second single, Purple Haze and 51st Anniversary, which came out on March 17th throughout the UK. This was the first single released by the band's new label, Track Records, and boy, was it a great release.
It's okay, Tony. No need for all the hype.
All right, well, I'll play it down then.
End of the episode. See ya.
It took off immediately as it didn't need to spread like Hey Joe did. Everyone knew who Jimmy was,
Yep.
and everyone wanted more of
You're
him.
nailing the delivery.
The
Thank
single peaked at number 3 on the charts in the UK.
Yeah.
It
Big
stayed there
fucking
for a
whoop.
full 14
Number 3, that's not one.
weeks.
Fucking heard that in my-
whoa,
done that in my
stayed up there
sleep.
for over 3
Jesus.
months.
Jesus.
Whoa.
That's
Is that good, Ethan? Are you
that's
happy?
perfect. Thank you for the
Come back when you got something that impresses me.
My ambience kicking in.
Shit. Just push through that and you're
shit
going to have
yet?
a good time here.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, just push through.
Oh man, I will be experienced at that point. So it was clear at this point that Jimmy could do no wrong in the UK and throughout Europe. Mike had a couple ideas, however, to make this even bigger.
And Mike had a couple ideas to make sure his paycheck could only get bigger.
Oh, buddy. Oh yeah. He's working for Mike first.
Oh, yeah.
Chaz third, Jimmy fifth, and then Mike is also every person.
Yeah, Mike is all about there.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure
all,
if
it's everyone.
anyone was on the chart.
So
Mike,
back
Mike,
in
Mike, Mike, Mike.
January, back in January, Mike disappeared without warning while Chaz was trying to get shows together and tours set up, which we will get to in a second. But come March, Mike showed back up in England around the time that Purple Haze was released to let the band know that they had a record deal in America, which was pretty much unheard of for the reason that they didn't have any music stateside at this point. Yeah. And no one over there knew who the Jimi Hendrix Experience was.
Yeah. Luckily, at this point, though, they had some big names putting some ideas in big ears.
Yeah, that's true. They did have a lot of bands who were popular in America blabbering about the band a little bit. So that does help.
There's chatter afoot.
But you have to remember, when Jimmy left, he was going by Jimmy James or Maurice or Buster or whatever he was going by. He had a ton of nicknames, but none of them were Jimmy, Jimi. And even those who knew him only knew him as the crazy guitarist who backed some big names on the Chitlin circuit. He did keep in contact with his family, but obviously they didn't go to talk to any record companies. Mike did.
His dad currently had a lawn mowing business, which Leon was helping
There he
with at
is.
this point. His dad and brother were literally just surviving.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what you get.
They would write the coattails of Jimmy's success.
Knowing how this story ends, I don't feel terrible for Al.
Yeah, dude. Everyone's fingers get a little grubby in about 30 years. And so
horrible.
And through all of that, I didn't even say who Mike managed to get them signed to in America. Warner Brothers.
Whoa!
I got him signed to fucking Warner Brothers. Like one of the big three
Insane.
out of the gate.
Yep.
It's amazing. More specifically, though, he got him signed to Reprise Records, whose parent company was Warner Brothers. And Reprise actually was run by the legendary record exec Mo Austin. Essentially, sight unseen.
Reprise was actually started by Sinatra in 1960 because he wanted his own label so that he could have like complete creative freedom. And the label blatantly excluded any rock artists because these damn kids know nothing about class or refined taste. Obviously, when
Not like Sinatra.
no, not like him, not like good old Sinatra, good old
They know nothing.
classy Sinatra. And obviously when Warner Brothers like scooped it up, they threw that bit out the window, and Mo Austin, he went ahead and signed Jimmy without hearing him or seeing him, basically just because Mick Jagger told him that Jimmy was the most exciting performer he had ever seen. And at the risk of rambling, which I'm already kind of doing, I just have to point out this is nuts in itself, because the first time Jimmy and Mick Jagger ever met, Jimmy was like talking to Mick's girlfriend and straight up was like, "What are you doing with this dude?" And Mick still simped over him.
Yeah, dude, Mick, through this whole series, we won't talk about him too much. Mick is like hard for Jimmy the whole time. Like,
Oh, yeah. But he's also
like
an asshole to begin with.
Yeah. But he's like, well, first he feels that Jimmy's taken away his mojo, which kind of,
Well,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, you gotta hand that over.
Yeah, that's just how it goes. But he's always like jealous that Eric Clapton and all these people get to hang out with Jimmy, and he's like, why doesn't Jimmy give me the time?
Fucking Mick
Why
Jagger.
can't I get his attention. I'm Mick freaking Jagger.
What the hell?
He's very sad by it. So
Yeah.
I feel like he's trying to like get those brownie points. When you have Mick Jagger groveling for you, not a bad place to be. Not a bad. You're getting Keith Richards guitars. You got his girlfriend trying to bang you, and now you got Mick Jagger just trying to get you the biggest deal
Just
you can.
help.
Not bad.
Just help
Not
you.
bad.
Look, Warner Brothers, I got them for you.
Will you please be my friend?
Please.
Will you be my friend now? God,
Smoke
dude.
one joint.
Mick, I got one effing thing to say to you. You can't always get what you want.
You can't.
You can't always get what you want.
Take your own advice, buddy.
But you get what you need. And what you needed was to help Jimmy get a huge record deal.
Good job.
Thank you, Mick.
Mike was a shady guy. We're going to get back to Mike now. Mike was a shady guy. But Jesus Christ, could he get shit done.
Oh, yeah.
Arguably way too much done.
He did well.
Yep.
With the contract.
For himself.
Yeah, of course. With the contract, which Mike signed on Jimmy's behalf on March 2nd, came a big advance for his record and a deal worth $150,000.
All right, if we're talking 1967 money, that
Yeah,
is that's 1.2 million now.
Yeah, not a bad place to be in.
No,
and
that's
in
okay.
This contract actually is kind of good for the band. So it's kind of crazy.
Relatively.
Yeah, in the contract, it promised 2% of royalties to Mike and Chaz and 8% of royalties to the band, which was much better than the 2.5% that they were having to split however they saw fit, which at this time was a 50-20-25 split, according to the contract that Jimmy signed with Mike and Chaz. But somehow, this gets even better.
Better for who, Tony? Because yes,
One person.
the numbers are better, but where are they going?
Well, buddy, they're better for Mike. honestly. After the Jimi Hendrix Experience signed with Chaz and Mike back in October 1966, and then just a couple months later, Jimmy alone signed another contract as a solo performer. The company that Jimmy signed with was called Yameta Publishing and was essentially a tax shelter based out of the Bahamas. But this is where Jimmy was signed to as a performer. And technically, Yameta was signed with Warner on Jimmy's behalf and not Jimmy himself, which would come to bite them in the ass in about a year.
If you remember from the first episode, this was a shell company that Mike set up. So not only did it keep them out of reach from the IRS, it made any actual bookkeeping impossible for anyone not named Mike Jeffrey.
And if you remember, he still wanted to take it one step further and put all of his booking in Russian.
Yeah.
Psychopath.
Yep. He's really good at making himself a lot of money.
Yeah, Mike really is like one of the most brilliant, devious dudes I think I've ever read about. It's incredible. Yeah. And just as a last note about Yameta, when Jimmy signed with them, the contract that he signed promised 40% of the gross earnings that was made to go straight back to Mike. Jesus. Which is an insanely large amount if you couldn't believe it. If you didn't know.
This guy's a corporate supervillain.
Oh my God, dude, that's just capitalism, brother. Capitalism 101.
That's true. Sadly, he's just an incredible entrepreneur.
We live in a society, that is for sure.
We do.
So almost half was shaved off the top to go straight back to Mike, which he claimed would be used for touring expenses when they came up. But now 4 months later, that really would not be the case.
I bet Mikey has expensive taste, you know.
Oh yeah, well
he does.
You gotta increase those tastes with those horrible teeth.
They're bad. Yeah, they're bad. But the band had pretty expensive taste too, and they were super good at blowing through this money that was for band expenses. You know, the whole thing about limousines and hotels and food and whatnot being paid for by management, but really being put on a tab that you owe eventually that they just don't tell you about until the time comes because you didn't actually read the contract no one can read.
This reminds me of something.
Yeah. Sounds familiar.
The one just laced in legal jargon that doesn't make sense to anyone.
Anyone.
Oh, God, love it. There's such a weird duality going on here because on the one hand, they're like living large here, blah, blah, blah. But then on the other hand, they're like, we aren't getting paid anything. Like at one point, the three of them all collaboratively write a letter to Mike and Chaz and say like, hey, we're making you guys good money. Can we see some of it? We would like to get paid more. And like they were getting paid like £300 a night every show that they played. And then they had two singles on the charts and they were like, we should be getting a lot of money here. And we are getting paid next to nothing. So what's going on? And then of course, Mike and Chaz just like sent them a little bit of a pay, like not an advance, but just like, okay, well, here's £1,000 to just shut you up and we aren't going to change anything on your contract. God. And that's how they handled it until the band broke up. So
good God.
Really fun.
Kick the can.
Exactly. The buck stops way over there. You
got to keep going. It's not. I think you're not there yet.
Yeah, I think it stops in Pigley Moor, whatever it's called. That town.
They're gonna be so mad. Ickley Moor in West Yorkshire.
Sickly Moor. I don't.
I mean, that is Ilkley.
Oh,
ILKLEY.
The town that's perpetually covered in fog, I'm sure.
And it's a little green everywhere.
Still haven't gotten indoor plumbing. They still dump their shit in the streets, I'm sure.
Oh my God. You just went for
let's
like
go in. All right.
You just set them back a few eras.
Yeah, well.
Prove me wrong.
Yeah, prove me wrong.
I can't. I actually can't.
Perfect. So Jimmy and the band were stoked to be signed to this huge label and to have some real money in their pockets, which is funny that I mentioned that letter earlier because even at this point, Noel and Mitch were barely scraping by with Noel having to go and physically complain to demand a pay raise where his pay was increased to a whopping £30 a week, which is approximately Ethan, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I put this part in here. It's about 558 pounds today, which comes out to about $765 a week.
That is not very much money.
Very much.
No.
It's more manageable, but this was a band who had 2 singles on the charts, and they were doing great. Everyone wanted to see them, and the backup band, and not even the backup band, the band was making less than $40,000 a year in 2021 money. That's pretty rough.
That's not just rough. I mean, despite the definition of poverty being approximately $12,000 a year, I'm going to say, despite what a bureaucrat wants you to believe, that's almost poverty.
Yeah,
that's pretty close.
That's scraping. That's scraping by. Yeah. And essentially, for how hard they were working, that was real rough for them. I mean, obviously, they were living the dream. They were rock stars, but remember, they had to take no days off, basically, and they were traveling around the country, becoming common for them to travel all day, go play a show, travel somewhere else. Like, obviously the UK is small, but it's not nothing. Like, you still have to take hours to drive up and down the countryside, and
it's constant. Like, it's kind of a toss-up because they're so busy to the point that they didn't really have time to spend money other than on like food and clothes and housing, which the record label was doing, but it's a fine amount, like until you think about the amount going into everyone else's trousers.
Exactly. That's the big part. Yeah, because
it's an issue.
I mean, Mike's getting 40%, and then they're getting another, like, I don't know. I'm not going to do the math. It's
their
just
royalties
insane.
were a lot the 2% royalties, and then Chaz was getting 20%.
Yeah. Yeah. Remember, the only thing on paper was that they were getting 2.5% of royalties split, and then they were getting like a weekly stipend of 30 pounds. So not great.
Meager.
And now they were going to put Mike's statement about that 40% going towards touring to the test, because roughly 2 weeks after Purple Haze was released, they were beginning a real tour with the Walker Brothers, who were a pop group who had come over to England from the US a year before Jimi, and had found some success after their song The Sun Ain't Gonna Shine Anymore became a hit.
Good for them.
Also on that tour was Eaglebert Humperdinck and a newer performer called Cat Stevens.
Ooh, baby, baby, it's a wild world.
God, I love me some Cat Stevens. I love me some Yusuf.
Yusuf Islam.
Good for him. Good for him. He did all the music for the beautiful movie Harold and Maude. Highly recommend that movie too.
I did not know that.
What a wonderful film.
I love that movie so goddamn much. Go watch it if you haven't seen it. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I won't even tell you what the premise is. Just go watch it.
Just go watch it.
So the
Engelbert.
Humperdinck.
Humperdinck.
Oh, what a name that man decided to keep in his professional career.
I don't know if what choice he made.
It was a tactic. It was a tactic. So the Jimi Hendrix Experience was far out of place on this tour. But when it was set up in January by Chaz, at about the time that Mike took off to the US, the band was still pretty unknown, all things considered. Their first single had just been released, and they'd barely played outside of London except for a handful of times. So the plan was for the Jimi Hendrix Experience to be near the bottom of the bill on this tour.
By this time, bands are learning pretty quickly that having the Experience play before you is not an ideal situation.
Yeah. Yes. Now they were very clearly blowing up. And so it made for a bit of a power struggle between the band and the headliners. Mainly that Jimi, as Austin said, was destroying the headliners every single night.
Absolutely.
And leaving them to have to try and follow up Jimi and the band's crazy live performances.
I just wish I could relate, honestly.
You want to try and follow a crazy performer?
No. I want to be the people that don't want to be followed.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant you just could experience in your life being after someone that was so good they blew you away.
Yeah, you want
No.
You want
I
sloppy
want to be the
seconds, big guy?
band that people
lamenting
don't want
over
to
that.
be in front of, behind.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That one.
That makes sense.
Oh man, this is getting complicated.
Just for me.
We're all doing fine.
So pairing all that with the fact that the Walker brothers were has-beens on their farewell tour and were basically 50s and 60s pop made it all the more apparent for the shifting styles throughout the show.
Take it easy, buddy.
No, I won't. I will not.
Ruthless.
I'll take it harder if you don't mind.
God. We're basically dried up.
Fuck 'em.
Has-beens.
Dude, straight up, fuck them.
Fuck them.
Don't know.
hell
They're
they
probably
I don't know anything about them.
They're probably
these
dead,
people.
yeah. So after a short jaunt through Germany, once the single was out, a couple more television performances, and one more day in Delaney Studios, where they actually recorded the song Manic Depression, the tour officially kicked off on March 31st in London. Since the Jimi Hendrix Experience was so low on the bill, their set was short, being only 5 songs long. They played the classic Hey Joe, Purple Haze, Foxy Lady, Can You See Me, and then ended the set off with his song Fire. And to make sure everyone would know who they were dealing with, at the end of the song, Jimmy went back to mess with his amps while Noel and Mitch jammed. And when he came back, he set his guitar on the ground and then brought a match to it, lighting it in flames, which some reported jumped 4 feet into the air, wowing the crowd and making the staff flip out. They rushed to put the fire out, and even getting yelled at by Tito Burns, the tour's promoter, backstage, saying that if he pulled another stunt like that, he would never work here again.
Never.
Honestly, I can't think of a single time where pyrotechnics have gone wrong indoors. I mean,
Don't do this.
Great
Don't do
White.
this.
I mean, nobody could possibly die in a fire inside a building. I'm sure 100 people wouldn't just die in a fire.
Oh my God.
That wouldn't happen. There's no risk. Low
Gotta
risk.
be careful.
All reward.
Oh, this Oktoberfest is going to go down faster now.
Yeah. This Easy Eddie is burning my throat more than usual.
Oh boy, yeah,
2006?
well, people at that Great White concert know all about that.
They're all dead.
God.
100 of them. Burned in a fire.
Dribble it down.
fire. Just got that fire.
Lay it on.
Oh
Thicker.
dear, yeah, that's a tragedy.
It was.
All right,
Too fresh.
well, yeah, pretty fresh. Moving on from that, here is the lesser known fact. Apparently, the entire thing was staged. The Jimi Hendrix thing, not the Great
Yeah.
White thing.
I mean, it was still very real fire in a very small venue, but it was definitely planned.
Yeah. Before the show, Jimmy was doing an interview with Keith Autham, who he had known for a little while, when Keith said that it would be sweet if Jimmy played the song Fire that night and then set his guitar on fire.
Yeah, the way I read it, Altham and Chaz were specifically talking about ideas for Jimmy to up the ante for his set and make him stand out more because the bill was stacked. And Altham was like, oh, you have a song called Fire. It's a shame you can't just light your guitar on fire. But Altham was super quick to say this was meant to be a joke. Like when he said it after what ended up happening, he really walks it back.
Yeah, he did not want to be associated with this stunt.
Complicit.
Complicit. I also love the name Autham because it
Yeah.
always just reminds me of Mike Tyson saying awesome. So
God.
it doesn't actually matter.
I'm glad you took the time to tell us about it, though, because
It
now
makes me laugh every time I hear it.
won't be
Every
able
time
to
I
hear
say
it. Awesome.
Yeah, Keith Autham.
That's awesome.
Jimmy and Chaz loved the idea as soon as they heard it, so they sent someone out to go get some lighter fluid. And during the set, Jimmy brought his guitar back to Chaz, who was standing by the amps, and they doused it in lighter fluid. Then Jimmy brought it back to stage and lit it up. But when he saw how big the flames got, he jumped off stage right away.
Not right away is the problem. Every account I read said that he lit it up and he grabbed it and swung it around his head a couple times and launched it into the audience. So it's like even more insane than you can imagine.
See, I don't know. There's so many conflicting stories about this, which is not like, because what I heard is that he lit it and then it just went up. It went up very quick, and he was like, oh shit, this is bad. And then he got off, and then I can't remember his name. There's another guy. He was the MC for the night. He jumped on stage to put it out, and like Jimmy got burns on his hands from it. But then the guy who put it out also got burns on his hands from it. So who the hell knows?
Yeah, I read that it took a few tries. It didn't go right up. He had to throw like 3 matches at it, and then
I was
picked it up
embellishing a little bit, Austin.
Okay, well, you got now you're telling me what's true. No.
Okay.
The fact is, the guitar went up, but yeah, it took a couple tries already. And then
he doesn't need your help vamping.
I want to make a good story, all right?
Already incredible enough.
All right?
No, you're right. You're right.
We're edutainment, heavy on the tainment.
Yeah.
Yeah, come on,
it's
buddy.
It's fine to fib a little bit if it helps the story. I do believe that.
Let me read. Jimmy brought it back to stage and lit it up. I didn't say he lit it up right away. I didn't say he did it on the first try.
When you were giving us this whole spiel, you said, I heard it went up right away.
Okay, sure. All right, fine. Let the record show.
No, it doesn't matter. Now I'm in a corner.
Well,
I'm just here to mediate.
you're doing a great job, big guy.
Yeah, keep fighting.
Stay out of it.
Fighting. Keep the fight going.
Yeah, you're putting lighter fluid on there. Well,
exactly.
I heard.
Oh my god. No one might be right anyway.
Regardless of what happened on stage, the venue's reaction to this was completely authentic, with them jumping on stage to try and put it out. And even Tito yelling at Jimmy backstage was planned to make things look more severe for the press.
Yeah, but the city fire marshal that threatened to shut them down after was not planned.
Yeah, he's going to be like the fucking cop. He's going to be like, you want me to spray water on the whole audience, idiots? Fuck yeah, brother. Yeah, woo, bro,
You can't.
God damn, get those public officials in there. You got yourself one bitchin' concert.
Oh my god.
Tito actually grabbed the guitar off the stage and then shoved it under his coat to sneak it out so there would be no evidence for this.
Good thinking, Tito.
Yeah, thank God for Tito. And that guitar was actually sold at an auction in 2008 for about $400,000. Which is not bad.
No.
Though there actually is growing belief that the guitar sold at auction was a fake because, grubby little fingers through and through. And the real guitar eventually made its way into the hands of Frank Zappa, who was gifted it by an assistant named Howard Parker, who worked with Jimmy later and was gifted the guitar by Jimmy and then gave it to Frank, and is said to be the guitar that he burned at the Miami Festival a year later. And there is some compelling evidence that points to all of that being true.
All right, that was a lot of words. You've got my attention. Just give me the evidence.
Well, the biggest thing I'm going to give you is that there is absolutely no evidence that Jimmy burned a guitar at the Miami Festival. Most people say that he did not burn a guitar at this festival.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. The whole confusion comes from an interview that Zappa did. So first things first, here's what we know. Parker gave Zappa an actual guitar that was burned by Jimmy. Here's what we don't know. Anything else?
All of it.
In this interview Zappa did, he was the one who said the guitar he owned is one that Jimmy burned in Miami. But like Tony said, the issue is that from every single account of people who were at the show, Jimmy didn't burn a guitar in Miami. So it's thought that Zappa either lied to confuse the story like he liked to do, or just said something incorrect, messed it up, and the guitar he owned is actually the first guitar that Jimmy burned. And you can find some compelling comparison pictures of scratches and burn marks and details in the body, but it's really old images. It's pretty hard to tell. So all in all, who knows? Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
Yeah.
Nobody actually knows.
If they say they know, they don't know.
Yeah. Pretty fun. Though you do look at the guitar that was sold at auction, and it just looks like somebody took a blowtorch to it. It looks not.
The other one, the one Zappa has does. There's some very scratches that add up, that look right and stuff. But the other one.
And just as a fun little end side note for that, Frank Zappa took the guitar that he had, whether that is this guitar or the one from the Miami Festival, and he actually got it working again. He actually had it rebuilt and got it working, and he played it a couple of times, though he said that it was really hard to play because it would feedback all the time because it was mostly destroyed.
That'll do it.
Yeah. But what we do know is that all of this was a planned gimmick, and holy shit, did it work?
It worked more than once.
Yeah, it worked every time he did
Every
it.
time, yeah.
Here we are, over 50 years later, talking about it, and the press had a heyday with it, too. This was the first date of the tour, and this is how they started it. They being the press, loved to paint Jimi as the bad boy rebel kid on this tour of older and more mature performers, which everyone on the tour enjoyed, because it was building the mythos around Jimi even more, but it also produced a lot of publicity, which was good for everyone.
Oh, yeah. When you're an older band, hitting your twilight years, publicity by proxy becomes more and more appealing.
Yeah, you got to get those people at the shows. I'm sure that the Walker brothers were like, Jimmy's blowing up. If we get enough young kids here, we might just be able to restart this career and keep it going,
Might
baby.
be able to get a second wind.
Fucking Humperdinck was like, oh, yes, I would love to get my career back in order.
Thank God.
It has seemed to have taken
absolutely love it if I could afford to eat.
Humperdinck didn't like anything, just so you know. He was not a fan of any of the antics going on through there.
Very real sourpuss.
Jimmy might be the reason that I know about the Walker Brothers one song that we talked about.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
No.
could be.
There we go. No one had much to lose on this because of all of this, because Jimi was still fairly small. Everyone else was kind of after the fact. Cat Stevens was there. And so everyone was just like, God, the press is talking about us a lot. This is awesome. And Jimi being called a rebel just made him look all the more appealing to the counterculture world that was blossoming and intriguing more people to come see him.
Sometimes hallucinogens can help with the appeal too, from what I've read from literature.
Read about it in a book, huh?
Yeah.
The internet.
You
You've
looked it
heard.
up. You're just, yeah.
Yeah. I was curious about it, so I read about it.
Good for you.
research.
Good for you.
For research purposes.
Good for you. God, we appreciate that hard work you've done putting that one sentence in from it.
You're welcome.
And,
Countless
and,
hours of test time.
Yeah. It's all the research right there.
and the performers themselves, even though they were real far apart on styles, got along just fine. There was no bad blood or drama. Basically no bad blood or drama. Like I said, Humperdinck wasn't a huge fan of everything going on.
Sourpuss.
But Noel actually agreed to play with Humperdinck for some extra money, and Mitch knew some of the members of the other bands, and as is usual among the bands, they drank and hung out and smoked, and they played pranks on each other, and they just had a good time. There was
goofing.
a couple events where Mitch and Noel would squirt the other bands with squirt guns while they played, and Mitch even hid a stink bomb under the kick and hi-hat pedal for the other drummer to discover the first time they pressed down on them and activated them, making them pop and forcing them to sit there in the horrible smell.
I'm so upset I never thought to do that to you.
Shoulda, woulda,
God,
coulda.
dude.
Missed opportunity.
If you ever smelled those things,
Oh, they're bad.
Terrible. They're so bad.
terrible.
They're
I
gut-wrenching.
accidentally popped one of those in my sister's car when we were driving one day. I was like, I was tinkering with it, and once I was like, uh-oh.
Oh, no.
My sister's like, what'd you do?
Oh, no.
And then like 10 seconds later, and then we had to pull over on the side of like a highway and just stand outside for 15 minutes.
Someone definitely did one on the school bus once.
Oh my God, dude.
Was that Amanda's car?
Yeah, it's the Lumina.
I think didn't we take that to Boys Like Girls at Val Air, and we had to like close the vents because it was like still in
Stunk.
That sounds right. Yeah, no, it permanently tainted the car, I'm sure.
Amazing.
So bad. That's wild. I appreciate you never doing that to me, because that would be so shitty, but
Yeah,
would also
just
be
funny,
a
though.
little fun. Yeah. All in all, this was a great tour for everyone. They played 50 shows across the UK in just 31 days. Every day they played was actually a double show with a late and an early performance.
I'm exhausted. The outline's exhausting me.
Unbelievable.
How?
Oh, I don't know how.
I don't know.
The band only had 2 true days off with nothing planned, because on the 6 days they didn't have shows, Jimi and the band were either in Olympic Studios for 3 of them, finishing up songs for their upcoming debut album. And these days in the studios were full days too.
That means that on top of all these double shows, they were also fleshing out new songs because remember, they had pretty much to have them ready to go when they got to the studio. There was no in-house writing. That's nuts.
Man, it's bonkers.
No breaks.
Yeah. And they were like doing like little media tours as well. Dude, they were doing so much. It's crazy how much they're doing.
I'm exhausted.
Everything, all of the time.
Of everything.
And most days in the studio were spent recording like a single song or maybe 2 songs. But over the course of these 3 days on April 3rd, 4th, and 10th, they worked on Highway Child, May This Be Love, Are You Experienced, I Don't Live Today, Red House, Third Stone from the Sun, Wind Cries Mary, Lover Confusion, and Here He Comes.
I know someone out there is probably wondering, what's Leon up to?
Oh, God, have I been?
He's still mowing lawns with his dad, but occasionally the mowing isn't making ends meet, so they have to clean attics and garages to make ends meet. So
That's so sad for what the music that I just heard.
So glad.
That's so sad.
Well,
Why did I pick my book?
I'm glad you're still going through it, man. Good for
Yeah.
you.
Going.
Still giving it to us.
If you're nothing else, you're stubborn as a mule. That's right.
Oh, I said that.
Yeah. You're welcome. They briefly went into the studio on the 25th as well to do some final mixing for the album. And on top of that, the band did 2 television performances for the BBC. And a lot of these things would happen on the same day. As earlier, the band kept busy. It was performance and media, performance studio. It was all over the place, man.
Beep, beep, bing, bing.
The band kept busy. And when it was all over, they took a well-deserved 3 days off.
Vacation all I wanted. Good for them.
3 days,
3
man.
days.
Long weekend. Look out.
Yep.
That's what I'm having this weekend.
Nice.
They just worked for the last month straight and took 3 days off. So.
Little breather.
It's great.
Like no money.
Oh, yeah. But they had to get back to work pretty quickly as they had some more music coming out. On May 1st, the United States got their first taste of the Jimi Hendrix experience when Reprise released their debut album, which featured Hey Joe on the A-side, but switching out Stone Free, heard on the UK's release, to instead go with 51st Anniversary, which I'm assuming is because the United States just loves failing languages.
All 3 of us can confirm that. We're all products of United States failed relationships.
Yeah.
Failed relationships. You can't fail marriage if you're never married. I
Oh my God.
believe
Oh
that.
yeah, I didn't. My parents didn't get married till I was 5, so I remember the marriage.
Mine never did.
Yeah. Austin got that legal loophole, buddy.
Not once. Not once.
Not even once.
Good for you, man. You thought about going to law school? You'll find that loophole.
I thought about it.
My parents never got divorced.
Yeah, I
Never got
think about
married.
it. I'm very good at talking myself out of believing things.
Good for you. Good for them.
Yeah.
But all the same, surprisingly, this single did nothing in the US, failing to even chart at all, which is pretty hard to believe as British bands were still doing a great job on staying on the US charts. It wasn't the biggest confidence booster for Reprise, but expectations were fairly low to start out. I mean, this was the
They'll be
debut.
fine.
and Jimmy had never been over in the States, so it wasn't that surprising.
Yeah.
And 4 days later, the third and final single was released in the UK. This one having The Wind Cries Mary and Highway Child on it. And very unsurprisingly, this one shot straight up the charts, peaking at number 6 and staying on the charts for a full 11 weeks. And to make sure the last single had momentum, a few media appearances were set up on the BBC and in Paris, and some more shows were played throughout London. But their main focus at this point was making sure their debut was ready and to already begin work on their follow-up album.
Got to stay 3 steps ahead. You're playing 4D chess here.
Yeah, man.
You're contractually obligated to play.
We are in May, and they have to put out
Obligated.
another album this year. They have to release a second album this
Say
year.
it the way you said it.
On top of and then 4 more, and then 4 singles per year. So
They're doing it.
they had work to do. On May 4th and 5th, they went into Olympic Studios to work on the songs "She's So Fine," "Taking Care of No Business," and "If 6 Was 9."
69. I don't know. I'm tired.
Yeah, too late. It's time. We're doing great.
Like a joke.
Just keep drinking, buddy. You'll
Hey,
get
I've
there.
got it. Tastes good. Every sip's better than the last.
Yeah.
We still have 3 games of Faz to play after this.
I'm in.
And then a week later, on May 12th, 1967, the UK finally got what they were waiting for from the Jimi Hendrix Experience when the album Are You Experienced was released to instant acclaim, with it certifying gold in the UK, selling over 100,000 copies and shooting up to number 2 on the charts.
Damn.
Only being stopped from reaching the top by a little album called Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
God damn it.
Which came out on May 26th of the same year and debuted at number 1. And by most accounts, is the best record of all time. So
Yeah.
it's
So close.
basically,
That's rough.
if Jimmy would have been going up against literally any other album in history, he would have hit number 1. But this album came out right before the most famous album.
Maddening.
Tough titty.
That's life.
C'est la vie.
C'est la fucking vie.
God.
Oh my goodness. What a
Nuts.
year. 1967. Not a bad year for music at all.
Nope.
The album was fairly straightforward in terms of instrumentals, with the members trying things in the studio, as we mentioned above. But the songs were kept fairly short, with 4 of the 11 songs being under 3 minutes, and only 2 of the songs being over 4 minutes, one of which came out at 4 minutes and 2 seconds. It also featured none of the songs that were released as singles. So if someone wanted to hear Hey Joe or Purple Haze or The Wind Cries Mary, you would have to buy all the singles as well. Though this was changed in the American release of the album a couple of months later. To keep the momentum going, the band headed back out on the road to play more shows across the UK, and then jumping onto the mainland as well to play in Germany, Sweden, Denmark, and Finland, where things went smooth for the most part, minus a couple racial tension issues with Jimmy, where people would say a couple things to him. They weren't used to seeing black people at this time for the most part, and so they were having a couple issues getting into hotels and stuff. But honestly, over in the UK and over in Europe, this was a pretty uncommon thing for them for the most part. And so on May 29th, after playing live and on TV almost every day since the album came out 17 days earlier,
Exhausting.
and playing a total of 24 performances over the last 26 days with plenty of travel between countries, the band headlined Barbecue 67, playing alongside supporting acts like Zoot Money, Pink Floyd, and Cream. The show should have been a raging success with that lineup, but by all accounts, it was a shit show, with way more tickets being sold than what could fit into what was essentially a hog shed, and the promoters bailing as soon as they had their money.
Definitely had a fair share with bad promoters.
Yeah.
Oh, man, they basically set the whole thing up, and then they were like, well, we got our money, and this seems like it's going to be really bad, so we should not be around.
Yeah.
And they left, and they got all their money, and everything went wrong. Jimmy, who was understandably annoyed by the hot conditions and tired from the past month playing every single night, got on stage to play his last show before a sweet 5-day break. His equipment was basically destroyed from all the touring because there was no such thing as road cases at that time, and the heat in the hog confinement was wreaking havoc on Jimmy's gear, where it wouldn't stay in tune and his amps were overheating and shutting off.
Blowing fuses, popping circuit breakers. You know electrical law, right, Tony? I mean, heat is...
Yeah, of course. All that they needed was just like the sanitary engineer to just like come in and start unplugging shit and like getting a public servant in there
got the light
to just
show
make
going.
that show
Oh, make it so
effing
nasty.
sick, brother.
Should have got the cops in there.
Someone-
Should have got the cops.
Oh, the cops were there, but they had drug dogs and were
Yeah,
trying
they
to
were
arrest
focusing
people
on
for
other
drugs.
things.
Yeah.
They're doing other stuff.
Yeah, they weren't caring too much about the production value, unfortunately.
Party
Yeah.
So, with his guitar going out of tune, Jimmy paused the show to tune it. And when the crowd started to get annoyed with the pause in what was supposed to be an incredible performance, Jimmy purposely took his time restringing his guitar to tune it and telling the crowd, quote, "Fuck you. I'm going to get my guitar in tune if it takes all fucking night." And when he inevitably gave up and destroyed his guitar, he kicked over his amps and shorted the entire building, shutting off all the power and making the place go pitch dark, doing what that police officer could. Apparently, nothing too severe happened after all this, but it was clear that Jimmy needed a break, and that's what he got. Minus a simple jam session with Eric Clapton and Jack Bruce for fun, he had nothing to do for the next 5 days.
Just a fun jam session with Clapton and Jack Bruce for shits and gigs.
Yeah, just like a no pressure jam sesh with like 2 of the 3 members of Cream.
Doesn't even matter really.
What was Ginger Baker doing that day? No one knows.
Missing out.
Probably beating the hell out of his drums.
I thought that was going somewhere else.
Yeah, no, I was scared for the next. Yeah,
that was the best ending you could have said.
Gotcha.
Good for
nicely
you.
done.
The band was free until June 4th, where Jimmy could relax and see Kathy again and listen to his records and shop for clothes and just be like a person for a little bit. Like just be a human being and enjoy himself. What a thought for him. But more work was on the horizon, and in a big way. On June 4th, the band played one more time in London at the Seville Theater, a place they had played a handful of times in the past and were very comfortable with.
Here it comes.
Here we fucking
Ready.
This may be the reason Jimmy felt comfortable coming backstage before they went on and telling Mitch and Noel that they were going to open the show with the newly released Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band's opening track, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
You know what?
Even though that this record had only been out for just over a week at this point, and the band had never played it together.
The band that wrote it hadn't gotten to play it yet. What the fuck?
We're playing this song tonight. But miraculously,
okay,
they went on stage and they played it perfectly. And to make it even better,
how?
4 members in the audience were Ringo Starr, George Harrison, John Lennon, and Paul McCartney.
That's all.
Just over a week this song's been out, never performed live by the Beatles themselves. And he has the audacity, the sheer scrotal fortitude to go out and play it in front of all 4 of them. I can't wrap my mind around it.
Dude, oh my God, like you just have to get shoulder straps to lift up those fucking bowling balls between his legs.
For those nuts.
Did they make me a bracer for your balls?
Get that guy a wheelbarrow for real.
It's like a Renaissance painting. Guy with his nuts in a wheelbarrow. They're so big.
The band was stunned that they managed to pull this off so quickly and so perfectly. They knew Jimmy was good, but they didn't think anyone could do this. It's not like the song is super complicated, but to do it that fast and to do it in their presence. I mean, there's a reason that like nobody auditions on any of the singing shows with like singing the song of the judges in the audience. Like that's high scrutiny.
Well, and you can't just do a cover of it. It has to be like an incredible breakout, like standalone rendition. Which
exactly,
like,
and as we've seen, Jimmy does his own thing with covers. So, like, how good was that cover?
I know. I want to hear it. I want so badly to hear it.
50 years later.
God, it's fucking.
Who
nuts.
knows? Who fucking knows? All the Beatles were huge fans of Jimmy, and they all really believed in him. But Paul took a special liking to him in the band.
They were so infatuated with him that they invited him to like a huge party after the show, and allegedly Paul met him at the door and told him it was one of the greatest honors of his life and handed him a big fat joint.
What a freaking prize, man.
That's awesome. God. Even the book was even like, not only at a blah 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 blah, he was smoking the Beatles marijuana.
That's gotta be some sticky icky. That's gotta be some dank coke.
I don't know what it's like at all, but I would bet it's good.
Oh man, I bet that shit is thick, brother.
Oh yeah, acid on it.
Am I doing? I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's thick. It's really thick and so dry.
Who knew?
Tony, give me some more acid.
Oh my God, dude, that green is probably so freaking gushy. Oh,
nice. Very deflective choice of word.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. That's all I got. I can't.
Nailed it.
Thank you. And so, with one final smash of the guitar, Jimmy bid the crowd adieu and saw his time in London coming to a close. For the time being, anyway. As we said a moment ago, the Beatles had grown fond of Jimi, and in March, an event was being set up in the States. Through a few changes, Paul McCartney found himself on a board to plan the event alongside Mick Jagger, Brian Wilson, and Smokey Robinson to talk about who should be involved in the show. Names like the Byrds, the Animals, Simon and Garfunkel, the Mamas and the Papas, and the Who were thrown out as people they needed to be there.
Who?
Knock it off. As well as some unknown names, like a man named, what is that, Otis Redding, and a young woman named Janis Joplin to keep it mixed up. I'm just having fun with it.
You're having a great time. I'm loving watching you do this.
I'm gaffing.
I love the joy in your eyes.
But it was Paul McCartney who said that no international pop festival would be complete without the addition of Jimi Hendrix.
He actually agreed to be on the management board solely on the condition that they picked Jimi to perform.
Insane. The Beatles. The Beatles.
It's nuts.
So Jimi agreed to do the show and boarded a plane with the band, this time in first class, leaving Europe for the first time in 8 months, having played 147 shows and appearing on dozens of television and radio shows and becoming a national rock star. And now he was hoping to try and find the same success in the States, as there was a festival in Monterey that had his name on it. And that is where we are going to pick it up for part 5 of Jimi Hendrix right here on in 5.
Oh, teasing me. Don't know when I'll be back again.
Back again.
Oh, man.
Just cut it in, it'll be fine.
Every week more exciting than the last. Would you even believe that?
I'm getting so stressed about how long this series is becoming.
There's really no light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah.
Yeah. No, so far we're in part 4. This is part 4, and we just got to his debut album.
Yeah,
release.
so whatever that means to whoever's listening, just think on that for a minute. Suck on that one.
Album. I do think things are going to start to move a little bit faster because, like, we could sum up a lot of what's going to happen in the next episode.
Yeah.
By just being like, he toured with this band for this long and it didn't go well. And like,
we say it time and time again. It's like them getting to their breakout is the juiciest bits.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. And here we are.
Oh, and we're
at the breakout.
Yep.
He's conquered half the world. Now he's going to try and conquer another half of it. It's not half. He didn't. He's conquered a very small part.
No, yeah, relatively small, but it will expand here soon. And if you want to hear about that happening, tune in 2 weeks from today. Every Wednesday, we're coming at you hot. We're coming at you hard. And if you want to see what's happening in the meantime, you can look us up.
2 more adjectives to
hot, hard. No, you did heavy.
To describe me, yeah.
Hardy.
Sloppy.
Hardy. Very hardy.
Sloppy.
If you want to see Tony's sloppy socials, you can find him on them. I'm not going to give his handle, but ours is We're On in 5 on everything. Patreon, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Well, Facebook, you just look the name up. It works a little differently.
Patreon is just On in 5, so.
Okay, well, fuck me. Mahalo. If you want to review us on iTunes, Stitcher, we'd love that. That's your prerogative. So I'm just gonna say it. We love you. We don't have to ramble on about ourselves. There's just so much audio to do to come, and I'm tired. We just all of us are so our brains are hard. We're packing in the info and we're doing it for you because we love you.
Yeah. Oh, so much fun. Yeah. We'll see you in a couple weeks. Thanks so much for listening, and thanks for indulging us on this fun little side project that's not as lucrative as every single side project we've talked about in this series.
Those are decidedly more lucrative.